General Hospital spoilers for Tuesday, April 15th reveal that Alexis has uncovered secrets involving Christina and Ava, revelations that completely changed her perception of the situation. In a shocking moment, Alexis accidentally overheard a conversation between Ava and Christina, during which Ava was threatening to expose Christina's involvement in cutting the car's brake lines. The truth left Alexis stunned, not only because of Christina's reckless actions but also because of the complex blackmail dynamic between the two women. But the real twist lies in Alexis learning about the transformation that Christina's crime is triggering, one that's causing a new eruption to form. As Alexis begins to understand the gravity of Christina's crime, not just the intent to harm Ava, but the unintended danger posed to Rick and Elizabeth, she finds herself facing an impossible decision. As both a lawyer and a mother, Alexis has always tried to ensure that justice is served. But when it's her own daughter who's at fault, the line between love and duty begins to blur. Alexis starts to realize that shielding Christina at all costs may not be the best way to help her. Perhaps Christina needs to face the consequences of her actions to truly learn a lesson. At the same time, Alexis sees clearly how Ava's manipulation and blackmail worsened the situation, pushing Christina into an even more dangerous position. As these thoughts swirl through her mind, Alexis begins to form a new plan, a plan not just to protect Christina, but to make sure Ava pays for what she's done. Alexis knows her plan could set off an explosion in both the family and the wider community, but she feels it's the only way to resolve the situation justly. As she prepares to put her plan into motion, Alexis realizes that nothing will ever be the same again, not just for Christina and Ava, but for the entire Davis family. With her resolve and experience, Alexis believes she can reach an outcome that honors both justice and family love. And as her plan unfolds, a new storm is brewing in Port Charles, one that could change everyone's lives forever. Meanwhile, Lois is increasingly worried about recent developments and growing doubts about Brooke Lynn's child. After discovering suspicious clues regarding the timing of the birth and inconsistencies in her daughter's story, Lois has been plagued with anxiety. She begins to wonder if the child Brooke Lynn is caring for is truly her own, or part of a deeper, more complex conspiracy she hasn't yet grasped. Feeling the weight of this suspicion, Lois decides to launch her own secret investigation. Wanting to avoid hurting Brooke Lynn or causing unnecessary tension in the family, she discreetly starts gathering information, looking into medical records, speaking with potential sources, and even exploring possible DNA evidence. Her motivations come not only from a need for truth but from a mother's instinct to protect her daughter from potential future harm. What began as a quiet concern grows into an obsession, fueled by the increasingly elaborate plans Lois devises. The deeper she digs, the more secrets she uncovers. Lois begins to suspect that Brooke Lynn may have entered into some kind of deal with Valentine, possibly connected to reclaiming ELQ shares or another hidden agenda she doesn't yet fully understand. Lois fears that if the truth comes out, the consequences could be devastating, not only for Brooke Lynn but for the innocent child and their complicated family dynamics. Her long-term plan isn't to expose her daughter but to shield her. She's preparing a defensive strategy in case the truth is revealed. One that will help Brooke Lynn avoid legal trouble and preserve her relationship with the child she's bonded with. Lois understands that motherhood isn't just about blood ties, but about love and care, and she's determined to protect that bond at all costs. However, this obsession is also altering how she sees everyone around her. She starts to doubt people, from Valentine to Brooke Lynn's closest friends, even other members of the Quartermaine family. Every interaction is scrutinized, every word weighed, and every expression dissected. This heightened paranoia is not only taking a toll on Lois mentally but could also lead to unnecessary misunderstandings and conflict. As she continues pursuing the truth, Lois is faced with a difficult question: should she share her suspicions with Brooke Lynn? And if she does, could it destroy their relationship? This is a no-win situation with no easy answers, but Lois knows that every choice could bring unforeseen consequences. Fueled by her love for her daughter and grandchild, she is willing to do whatever it takes to protect her family, even if it means confronting painful truths and making tough decisions. As the story unfolds, Port Charles is about to witness one of the most intense confrontations yet, not just between families, but within the Cerullo and Quartermain families themselves. And at the heart of this storm stands Lois, a mother determined to protect her daughter no matter what, even if it means facing off against the most powerful forces in town. Meanwhile, Elizabeth has been discharged from the hospital, a joyous moment for her family and friends after a long recovery from a serious car accident. However, what no one expected is the shocking plan Rick and Ava are forming, to use Elizabeth's injuries and hospital stay to blackmail Alexis and Sonny. This surprising alliance between two people who have never particularly liked each other is built on one shared goal, to make Christina pay for her actions, and to profit from the situation. Rick, as the main victim in the accident and Molly's father, has legitimate reasons to seek justice. But under the guise of righteousness, he is nurturing a darker plan. To use Elizabeth's pain as leverage against Alexis and Sonny, forcing them to pay a steep price to keep Christina out of jail. He's gathered all the necessary evidence, medical records, injury photos, even recordings of Elizabeth in pain, all of which could be used to present a powerful emotional narrative in court. Ava, ever sharp and opportunistic, quickly saw the potential in Rick's plan. She proposed a collaboration. Rick would provide the evidence and storyline, while Ava would leverage her connections and influence to apply maximum pressure on Alexis and Sonny. She even suggested using the media to publicly shame them, forcing them to choose between protecting their family's reputation and shielding Christina from legal consequences. What's truly spiraling out of control is how Rick and Ava are expanding their plan. They're not just targeting Alexis and Sonny anymore, they're digging into the lives of other members of the Davis and Corinthos families. They've started gathering information on every aspect of their lives, looking for weaknesses and secrets to exploit. Every relationship, business deal, and past decision is being examined for leverage. Rick has become obsessed with making Christina pay, not just by facing the justice system, but by experiencing the same pain he and Elizabeth endured. Each day, his resentment grows, and the plan becomes more complex and dangerous. Ava, with her experience in manipulation and blackmail, keeps suggesting bolder moves. She's proposed leaking accident details to the press and even fabricating some evidence to make the case appear more severe, an idea that even Rick finds troubling. What Rick and Ava didn't anticipate was Elizabeth's reaction once she learned about their scheme. Although she was the victim in the accident, Elizabeth refuses to let her pain be used as a weapon. She has begun to suspect Rick's true intentions as he persistently questioned her recovery and documented every detail. When she accidentally overheard a conversation between Rick and Ava, she knew she had to act. Elizabeth has started forming a plan of her own. With support from trusted friends like Lucky and Nicholas, she's collecting evidence about Rick and Ava's blackmail plot. She knows that although Christina made mistakes, using another person's suffering for revenge isn't the path to true justice. As Elizabeth prepares to confront Rick and Ava, a new battle is brewing, not just over justice and blackmail, but about ethics and compassion. As a nurse and a mother, Elizabeth understands that while Christina was wrong, exploiting someone else's pain isn't the answer. Meanwhile, Alexis and Sonny, still unaware of Rick and Ava's plan, are trying to figure out how to protect Christina. Alexis, as a lawyer, is searching for legal loopholes that might reduce her daughter's sentence. Sonny, with his power and influence, is ready to use every resource available to ensure his daughter is treated fairly by the justice system. As news of Rick and Ava's scheme begins to spread, Port Charles braces itself for one of the most dramatic showdowns in its history. People will have to choose sides, justice at any cost, or compassion and forgiveness. At the center of the storm are Elizabeth, Rick, Ava, and the Davis family, each driven by personal motives and goals, but all facing the unforeseen consequences of their choices. As tensions rise, chaos builds, and no one can predict how it will end. Will Rick and Ava succeed in their plan? Will Elizabeth stop them in time? And how will Alexis and Sonny react when they learn the truth? The answers to these questions will reshape Port Charles in the days to come. Molly, as Rick's daughter and Christina's sister, will also face a moral dilemma. She is determined to make sure Christina is held accountable, but does she agree with her father's methods? And if not, Will she be brave enough to stand up to him and defend what she believes is right? As the situation continues to evolve, Port Charles is heading toward a battle not just for justice, but for morality, family love, and the power of forgiveness. And as each character makes difficult choices, the community will come to see the truth of who they are, and what values they truly stand for. Trina turned to Ava for advice after Kai accepted money from Drew to undergo surgery, a risky decision that Trina felt uneasy about. With her extensive experience in navigating complex relationships and her deep insight into hidden motives, Ava had become the person Trina sought out in her most difficult moments. Trina was torn between supporting Kai's decision and trying to convince him to reject the money from Drew, a man whose true intentions she increasingly suspected. But if Ava now had a new angle, a fresh story involving a potential new strike against Drew, it was setting the stage for a fresh eruption. After listening to Trina's concerns, Ava realized this could be the perfect opportunity to execute her plan against Drew. Rather than simply giving advice, Ava began manipulating the situation to her own advantage. She used the trust and affection Trina had for her to gather information about Drew, his relationship with Kai, and the details of the funding he had provided. Every piece of information became part of Ava's larger plan, to weaken Drew's position and potentially reclaim some of the power or assets she believed she deserved. Ava's new offensive against Drew went beyond collecting information. She also sowed seeds of doubt in both Trina and Kai's minds about Drew's true motives. Ava stressed that, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world and suggested Drew must have a personal agenda behind offering such a large sum to Kai. She hinted that Drew could be using Kai as part of some kind of experiment or attempting to control him through financial dependency. These suggestions began to influence Trina, who already had suspicions about Drew. She started to view the situation through a new lens, feeling a growing responsibility to protect Kai from any possible scheme Drew might be running. This prompted Trina to launch her own investigation into Drew, digging into his past projects and the people he had previously worked with. Meanwhile, Ava began spreading rumors and doubts about Drew throughout the Port Charles community. Leveraging her network of contacts, she planted questions about Drew's integrity, the motives behind his funding, and potential secret projects he might be involved in. Each rumor was carefully crafted to inflict maximum damage on Drew's reputation, without ever leading back to Ava. As Ava's plan started to take effect, Drew began to feel pressure from all sides. Business partners questioned his projects, investors began to pull out, and even friends and family started doubting his intentions. Drew, who had always prided himself on his reputation and integrity, now felt things spiraling out of control. Ava's scheme sparked a new wave of tension in Port Charles, as people began choosing sides. Some believed the rumors and distanced themselves from Drew, while others remained loyal and defended him. This divide created a tense atmosphere in the community, with everyone bracing for potential conflict. Trina, now at the center of the storm, faced tough decisions. She had to balance her loyalty to Ava, who had always supported and advised her, with her growing concerns about whether she was being manipulated. She also had to consider her duty to protect Kai and the lingering respect she still held for Drew, despite her suspicions. As events continued to unfold, Port Charles braced for an inevitable showdown between Ava and Drew, a confrontation that could draw many others into its whirlwind. At the heart of this conflict stood Trina and Kai, two young people trying to navigate a world full of hidden agendas and constantly shifting alliances. This new explosion promised to reshape the landscape of Port Charles in unpredictable ways. And everyone would need to prepare for the coming changes. One thing was certain: the battle between Ava and Drew wouldn't end quickly or peacefully. And everyone involved would have to face the long-term consequences of the choices they made in the days ahead. Meanwhile, Brooke Lynn was caught up in her own complicated story, one that pushed her into tough decisions and risky actions. Her new plan marked a major shift, driven by her determination to protect her relationship with Chase. Brooke Lynn, known for her bold and assertive personality, had realized that her relationship with Chase was under threat. Whether it was pressure from the Quartermain family, challenges in Chase's career, or even the appearance of a third party, she decided she would do whatever it took to protect it. Her new strategy involved a series of calculated moves, manipulating family dynamics to gain support for her relationship and interfering in Chase's career to ensure he remained in Port Charles. She even began collecting information on people she considered threats to her relationship, with the intent of using it if necessary. First, she approached her father, Ned, hoping to gain his backing. She used emotional appeals, reminding him of his love for Lois and the challenges they overcame, implying that he should understand more than anyone the value of fighting for love. When Ned remained hesitant, Brooke Lynn upped the stakes by suggesting she might renounce her inheritance and leave the Quartermaine family if he didn't support her, a psychological blow to a man who had worked so hard to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. Next, Brooke Lynn began intervening in Chase's career. Learning that he might be transferred to another city for a special assignment, she used her connections to ensure he would stay in Port Charles. She met privately with the police commissioner and proposed that Deception could fund a new community outreach program for the department, an enticing offer designed to make it advantageous to keep Chase around, thereby maintaining the link between the department, Brooke Lynn, and her company. These efforts began rippling through the Port Charles community, affecting not only Brooke Lynn and Chase but many others. The Quartermaine family faced internal conflict as members chose sides, either supporting or opposing Brooke Lynn's relationship. Chase's colleagues at the police department began questioning some of his recent decisions, unaware they were being influenced by Brooke Lynn's behind-the-scenes maneuvering. Michael, Brooke Lynn's cousin, began to grow suspicious of her recent behavior. He noticed changes in how she approached family meetings and business decisions and started keeping an eye on her. Concerned she might be doing something harmful to the family or to ELQ, he began quietly gathering information on her activities. Brooke Lynn's bold actions to protect her love were drawing her into increasingly dangerous and unethical territory. She started to realize the line between protecting and controlling was becoming blurry, and that her efforts might be harming the very relationship she was trying to save. At times, she questioned whether she'd gone too far, but her fear of losing Chase kept her moving forward. One of Brooke Lynn's boldest moves came when she discovered that one of Chase's female colleagues, a new officer named Sophie, seemed to have feelings for him. Brooke Lynn began gathering information on Sophie, her past relationships, personal secrets, and anything that could be used to push her away from Chase. When she learned Sophie had once been involved with a member of a criminal family, Brooke Lynn considered using the information to threaten Sophie, a step even she knew was beyond the ethical line. Meanwhile, Chase remained largely unaware of how deeply Brooke Lynn had inserted herself into his life. He began feeling pressure from multiple directions and started noticing strange coincidences. Doubt crept into his mind, threatening the foundation of trust their relationship was built on. Chase started to wonder whether Brooke Lynn knew more than she let on about why he hadn't been transferred, and whether she had something to do with recent changes at the precinct. As the situation escalated, Brooke Lynn would soon face unforeseen consequences for her actions. She would have to ask herself whether the end justifies the means, and whether the price she was paying to protect her relationship was too high. Meanwhile, Port Charles would feel the ripple effects of her choices, triggering a wave of new conflicts and confrontations. Lois, Brooke Lynn's mother, had begun to notice changes in her daughter's behavior. With a mother's intuition, she grew concerned that Brooke Lynn might be in trouble, or doing something that could hurt her. Lois decided to dig deeper and might become the first to uncover Brooke Lynn's full plan. In the end, this story would test not only the love between Brooke Lynn and Chase but also her morality and boundaries. It would raise questions about the nature of love, trust in relationships, and the cost of protecting what we hold dear. As things continued to evolve, Port Charles would witness one of the most dramatic and complex love stories in its history. And when all the secrets finally came to light, Brooke Lynn and Chase would have to confront a painful truth. Was their love strong enough to survive manipulation and deceit, or would it mark the end of something they both had fought so hard for?